OMGesus, boys, girls, in betweeners, welcome. How you doing? This is this is something new. We're doing. I think I don't know if can we call it a podcast if we're not actually putting it on iTunes.
Let's just call it our own little kind of tangential video series.
Let's just call it our own little crazy rant thing. This is me. This is Nayrman, obviously, a good friend and very knowledgeable fellow on games that I have no idea about. And we just want to talk about just stuff that's going on in gaming in general, in the week that was, that kind of thing. And we just want to give our thoughts and just have a chat because, like, we realize that, like, Nay and I are good friends. We've been really good friends for a long time, and even though we've never actually met each other in person. And basically, yeah, we want to we talk about games all the time. Like every time before we do a Colonial Marines or a Metal Gear or anything like that, we usually just sit there and talk about games for like an hour or so. So I thought it'd be kind of cool to actually put that on recording and give it to you guys and see what you guys thought, and so you guys can offer your own suggestions.
Hey, whatever works, it all sounds good in the end. So let's just have some fun with this. And what's our first topic?
Our first topic of conversation this week is that Sonic Boom. And I just want to say I do love saying it as Sonic Boom because that's completely what Guile says in Street Fighter if you switch his voice to Japanese. That Sonic Boom on the 3DS, Sonic Boom sold less than 500,000 copies combined, which I believe in like proper industry speak is basically box cancer. Is that correct?
It's not terrible. It's not what a major AAA franchise wants to sell.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm not really an expert on like numbers in the industry or things like that. I do know that like companies like Capcom will set just like what people feel are like very unrealistic sort of expectations. Like Capcom like is like grossly disappointed if they don't sell more than 2 or 3 million units for any particular game.
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't really know what numbers are considered good, considering everyone has very skewed expectations and no one's really sure how much games really cost these days. We do know Sonic Boom had a pretty decent budget, so it probably came close to making its money back, but ultimately that's not what Sega's looking for.
Yeah, everyone wants to be the next Call of Duty.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, so now you've actually played Sonic Boom, and what like I've never played any Sonic games. Actually, I take that back. The only Sonic game that I have played is Sonic Generations, and that's it. And not because I hate Sonic or anything like that, just that I had a very sheltered childhood. That was really the reason for it.
Yeah, Sonic Generations is pretty much considered the last good game for now. Sonic Boom in and of itself is not that good of a game. It's very, very boring. It's very bland. It doesn't have a lot going for it, and that's kind of why the word spread really quickly that it's really not worth people's time. It's not even one of those it's so bad it's funny sort of things.
That and like everyone got really mad about how Knuckles looked.
Yeah, Knuckles never skips always skips leg day.
He never does leg day. It's he's just sitting there on a bench behind Sonic's little house just doing push-ups every single fucking hour of the day.
Yeah, the redesign certainly didn't help, and that kind of alienated it itself from a lot of other Sonic media. So that any favors for it?
I can kind of see the need, like, because Sonic was born out of that generation of like the 90s where like everything had to be extreme and over the top and things like that. And he was like the anti-Mario for that reason. He was like the character that was like so cool and fresh and hip, and obviously like as contrast to, you know, Mario's very old entrenched 80s ways. But like that hasn't translated very well over the last couple of decades.
It kind of depends on what you're looking at. Some games that's worked well, some games it hasn't. It really just depends on who's writing him. The gameplay in and of itself has been so much all over the place that it's hard to see any consistency with the franchise. That's part of the main problem with it.
So you don't think it's like down to his appeal as a character? You think it's more of a gameplay thing?
Yeah, I think it's more of a gameplay thing. I think the character is still fine. That pretty much proves with the popularity of the Sonic comics, which are still going on pretty strongly right now, because it's actually written well. But the character in and of itself, I don't think.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I don't think the character itself is the problem. I think it's just the lack of consistency and the quality of the gameplay.
Yeah, because I've been looking at some of like the older Sonic games lately, just like out of like sheer curiosity, and like stuff like Sonic and the Black Knight, Sonic 06, things like that just look like absolute train wrecks as well.
Yeah, there are certainly worse games than Sonic Boom, which is weird how this one got labeled the one that killed the franchise yet again, but it's not a terrible, terrible game, it's just kind of meh.
It's just solidly mediocre. It's boilerplate, it's run-of-the-mill.
Yeah, pretty much. There's nothing really worth talking about.
Fair enough. So, do you think that, because the other thing about this article that I read is that Sega is going to move more away from console development and focus more on handhelds. Do you think that this is it's being attributed basically to Sonic is what this article and people are saying in general. Do you think that that's the case?
I think we'll definitely see more Sonic on mobile devices, at least in form of just things being developed for it, but I don't think that means that's going to kill any console ideas. I think they're just going to take things a bit slower on the console and say PS Vita or handheld stuff.
Yeah, I think it would be a big shame if they moved away from consoles altogether, certainly, because, I still have some good franchises. My god, Alien Isolation, that's a game which is so freaking terrifying that I own it, and I haven't played it because I'm too scared to pick it up.
Well, that means it's doing its job.
Sorry, let me rephrase that. A friend of mine, a very close friend, is too scared to pick it up. It's totally that.
Right.
Alright, so that's kind of it for Sonic. Now, next thing that we wanted to talk about is you want to talk about Majora's Mask on the 3DS, which I'm actually very interested in because I've never played a Zelda game in my life, and I've seen some playthroughs. I've seen some playthroughs of Ocarina of Time. I've been watching, obviously, your playthrough of Majora's Mask and so forth, but I've never had a chance to experience this. But it's just come out on 3DS, and there are some changes that have been made to it. So, what are your thoughts?
I think they're generally there to make things more accessible. They basically tell you a bit more in-depth how to do all the side quests, because some of them can be really cryptic about when you were supposed to do things versus how you're supposed to do things. They also just made the whole inventory system a little less bothersome, as they did with Ocarina of Time 3D on the 3DS. Finally, they just kind of tweaked a few little things. They made things a little bit easier. They made things a little bit more streamlined, so just to make things a bit more fresh and a bit more accessible to new players. Because Majora's Mask is one of those games that's very love it or hate it, but it's very unfriendly to new Zelda players.
Yeah, again, I know nothing about this sort of thing, and from everything that I've heard, it's basically like they were just trying to take another bite of the pie, they were trying to get another Ocarina of Time at the door, and it's not as well loved at all as Ocarina of Time.
It really depends on who you talk to. Like I said, the game is very love it or hate it. I personally really love it. The problem is that it's not very much like a traditional Zelda game. There's only 4 dungeons, whereas most of the game is made up of side quests, so you're going to be doing a lot of just kind of running around the town and doing various things in the world versus going through and climbing through dungeons and doing the whole Zelda exploring sort of thing.
Okay, so it's kind of like the Dragon Age 2 of Zelda games.
Yeah, pretty much.
So do you think this is a good direction for them to be going in? Obviously, I'm guessing that they probably made their money back on, just redeveloping this. So do you think that Nintendo should be releasing more games on handheld, things like that? Older Zelda titles, classics, maybe Super Mario Galaxy, I don't know?
Possibly. I don't see it as a bad thing. This is more so for N64 games because they're starting to get really kind of rare, or their batteries are dying and so on and so forth. So this is sort of more of a way to bring the classics back up to speed. Give them little tweaks, give them a little freshing coat of paint. So I'm definitely fine with it. They did the same thing with Ocarina of Time. They did the same thing with Star Fox 64. So I'm all for it. I think it's an enjoyable new kind of way to play the game on the go.
Yeah. Now that brings us to an interesting point, because we've discussed this before, but I wanted to actually get people's thoughts on this, because does Nintendo and Iwata just hate money? Because Iwata very recently, I believe it was at another shareholders meeting, basically reaffirmed Nintendo's commitment to not putting any of their games on mobile devices.
Yeah, I don't get that either. I don't see why, if they decided to say, hey, let's put Super Mario Brothers on the iPhone or something. It's just very easy money and without much cost to them.
It is. It is. It hurts my soul because, like, first of all, there are people who have, Android phones who are just running Super Mario Bros. On there anyway. I mean, I saw a dude playing on the train yesterday. I saw a dude playing Pokemon on his Android phone. So, I mean, it's happening whether they like it or not, but they insist on having, like, this, like, oh god, almost like dystopian level of control over their own IPs. So, like, no one else can have these but us.
Yeah, that's kind of always been one of their problems. They don't like to loan things out. They don't like to put things on platforms they're not directly in control of. So that leads to a lot of dictatorial kind of demands whenever a third party gets their hands on something.
My question, though, is why? Because I don't fully understand that. I mean, obviously, like, you want to have your own IPs on your own consoles. I understand that. But what is wrong with putting Mario on an iPhone or on an Android phone or anything else like that? Are they worried that that's going to somehow, like, people are going to see that and say, oh, he's an Android brand now? I don't know.
I have no idea. Obviously, I wouldn't want them to release new games on mobile devices, but putting their old list of classics like Super Mario Bros. Or Pokemon Red and Blue on there, I don't think that would hurt them in any particular way.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, I don't understand it, and, yeah, like, because I personally, I would pay all the fucking money to have, like, just, regular 8-bit Mario on my phone that I could play on the bus, on the train, or Pokemon, or something like that. It's just, for a company which has had very rough times for the last couple of years, basically since the Wii U was released, because the Wii U, it sold terribly on release, it continued to sell terribly, it's a huge money pit for them at the moment, and their business is basically being propped up by the 3DS, as to, like, this would just be the biggest shot in the arm humanly possible in terms of their finances.
You can basically chalk this up to the old guard not knowing how things work in technology these days.
Yeah, pretty much, and it's also like, and they have to, like, explain this every time at shareholder meetings, because the shareholders themselves obviously would like to also have some of this gigantic pile of money that would be coming their way.
Well, I'm not in charge of Nintendo, so I ultimately don't make those decisions, so we just have to deal with their stupidity from now on.
What would you do if you were in charge of Nintendo?
I would make a console worth a damn, first and foremost.
Because we were also having this discussion earlier where, like, I'm not a Nintendo fanboy, and I say that having owned a Wii, and I currently own a Wii U, so don't think for a moment that I'm like one of those, like, I'm a game bro, I'm a Sony Xbox fan, I do have, Nintendo consoles, I'm just not a huge fan of theirs, and a lot of the reason for that is that basically, in my opinion, they have been trying to rely on gimmicks for far too long to move consoles. I mean, basically since the N64, because they're either terrified of piracy, or they just, like, want to just skimp on the hardware and deliver a different experience under the guise of saving money.
Yeah, ultimately that's kind of their downfall, and that's why none of the third parties want to publish for them, because it's too much of a risk when you have to spend so much time developing for something so weird.
Exactly, and I mean, basically, like, the N64, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but my understanding was the whole reason they went with the cartridges on the N64, even though they were much more expensive to produce than CDs, was purely for the fact that they were harder to copy.
Yeah, harder to basically copy and harder to basically they went with the whole no load times, it was faster, etc, etc.
And every game looked the same as a low texture polygon mess.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, so there was that, there was the GameCube, and GameCube had the same issue, because they were hamstringing themselves, which I found very frustrating, because there were certainly games at the time that I wanted to play on Nintendo. I wanted to play GoldenEye on the N64, I wanted to play, I wanted to play the Resident Evil games, which we'll get to in a second, on GameCube, and things like that, and it was just incredibly frustrating to me, because, like, next generation after that, you had GameCube, and that was, again, they chose to hamstring themselves by having DVDs that held only half the content, or even less. Wasn't it like, geez, 2 gigabytes that they held?
I'm not sure the exact total, but they used UMD discs.
Yeah, the UMD discs, that's what I was talking about. Like, they're half-size DVDs, and they didn't hold nearly as much as a DVD, but again, that was purely for the fact that they want to try and circumvent piracy.
Yeah, pretty much. Ultimately, that was just kind of a stupid thing on their fault. So ultimately, it just meant that certain big to be shipped in 2 discs.
Yeah, pretty much. And then obviously moved on onto the Wii, which was a huge, phenomenal success, but that was at the cost of I don't want to get on a huge tangent about this, but that was obviously at the cost of a lot of their hardcore audience, things like that, because they wanted to cater to casual gamers, which was, as we all, I mean, I predicted this at the time. No one will believe me because I didn't tell anyone, but I was pretty certain that casual gamers are not loyal gamers, and that obviously came around to bite them in the ass a few years later.
Yeah, pretty much. I think that's what a lot of the core gamers said when the Wii came out. They just said that, okay, you'll get your quick money, but ignoring us, you're just basically going to say we don't care about you, and yeah, lo and behold, that's what happened.
Yeah, so now we have the Wii U, which is obviously doing very poorly, and which is actually a shame because there are a lot of really, okay, a lot is kind of stretching it, but there are some very good games on Wii U at the moment, like things like Bayonetta 2, things like Smash Bros, things like Mario Kart 8, and especially Bayonetta really hurts my soul because I do love Platinum games, and the fact that that is selling so poorly, even though they're not going to take the hit, it's Nintendo taking the hit because they financed it, it still is very disappointing.
Yeah, unfortunately there's not much you can do about it because the system itself doesn't have a huge install base, so you're going to wind up with poorly performing games as a result.
Pretty much, and looking forward to the future, I mean, you're obviously looking forward to Splatoon a lot?
Yeah, I am. There's a few games coming out for the Wii U that I'm looking forward to, so we'll see how the tides turn in the next couple of years for the system.
Yeah, I definitely want to get the new Xenogears game. Is there any word on when that's coming out?
Which game exactly?
Xenogears, however you pronounce it.
You mean Xenoblade Chronicles X?
Ah, geez, yeah. Okay, that game, yes.
I believe it's coming out sometime in the summer.
Okay, so that's winter for us in the Australia part of the area, the down under.
Yeah.
Alright, so that's enough of that. So moving on, and this is just tangentially because we were going to talk about this anyway, but it's kind of tied into what we were saying before, is I've been playing the living balls out of the RE remake, which has been now released on Xbox and PlayStation. Have you checked this out at all?
I played the GameCube version, so I haven't gotten around to the digital version yet, but I probably will, but I did play the GameCube version.
Yeah, and I've been playing I'm actually enjoying it much more than I actually suspected I would, because I've played every version of it. I played the original, sorry, I take that back, I haven't played the Dreamcast version. I played the PSX version and I played the GameCube version. So, coming back to it, I just yeah, sure, I mean, it was I think it was $20 here, because we pay way more for games than you do, which is an entirely different conversation. But, yeah, it's just, it's amazing to me just, get to play a game which does not hold your hand every step of the way, does not, have a big green blinking neon sign saying, go here, dipshit, this is the next place to go, things like that.
Yeah, ultimately, we're old and remember the good old days where games didn't handhold you all the time, so, we're old.
We are old, that's absolutely true, and that's the point that I cry myself to sleep with every night. But outside of that, I mean, I just think it's very interesting that, it's a game that it doesn't, point out the way that you have to go. It doesn't hold your hand, and it doesn't give you, heaps of, if you play the game and you fuck it up and you spend too much ammo and you can't get past a certain boss, you're fucked. That's it. You have to reload a save or start over. There's there's no oh, here's a there's a big room full of items and shit like that. Leading up to a boss, which is the call sign of there's a boss fight coming up in more recent games.
Yeah, well, it's trying to actually be the survival part of the survival horror, which it doesn't really do anymore. So that's something I really enjoy about the cold Resident Evils. At least it tries to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think survival horror, just as a genre of late, has been, there's an argument to be made that part of the appeal of survival horror is that there are those clunky controls. There is the fact that you don't have two shoulder-mounted rocket launchers attached to your character all the time, things like that. You're fending them off with a pistol, or in the case of Silent Hill, a board with a nail in it, and things like that. And that is what accentuates the fear. And do you agree with that? Is that your thought process on survival horror these days? Because it's a genre which I think is dying out.
The genre is kind of dying out, but at the same time, I never liked the tank controls. I always prefer better controls and just kind of putting you in situations. So something like The Last of Us I really enjoy. Something like PT was really good. It really just kind of depends on how you're setting it up. versus just limiting your controls, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, look, I agree. I agree to an extent. I love 10 controls. I'm 10 controls for life. I'm playing it with 10 controls right now. I guess, like, yeah, that's just my thoughts on the matter. I think that it's kind of like either, like, these days you either have to go, like, really super hardcore into the whole no weapons thing. Like, there are so many games now that you like Alien Isolation or like other games like Five Nights at Freddy's, I guess. I don't know. Or, you know, God, that one where you're in the prison and all the prisoners are trying to kill you. I forget what it's called.
Oh, I don't know off the top of my head either.
It was like you're in the dark and you have like you can only see with the camcorder and shit like that. People know what it is. There are people listening to this right now going, "Is this game you bastard? It's this game! Why don't you?" I'm tapping my desk now and it's shaking all the things. Anyway, it's like you either have to go to that extreme of just having no weapons or having completely ineffectual weapons, or you just go balls out action and that's it.
Yeah, pretty much. It really just kind of depends, because I feel you can have some competent weapons, just really limit the ammo or what you can do with them.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, that's probably all I want to talk about there. I was just shocked. I just found it very enjoyable. I'm actually going through the second playthrough. I played it once with Jill, which actually turns out that Jill is... I knew Jill was easier, but apparently the game considers Jill to be so easy on normal difficulty that she doesn't actually give you the achievement for completing the game on normal difficulty.
Oh, really?
Yeah, really, I was kind of shocked. I was like, really? I'm pretty sure I picked the middle option.
Well, I guess that's just how Capcom wants to play achievements, so whatever.
Yeah. And Chris is actually shockingly harder. Like, Chris has, like, he has, like, fewer inventory spaces and shit like that, but, like, I'm pretty sure that the zombies go Crimson Head way faster when you're Chris than they do with Jill.
Huh. Maybe they changed a few things, but then again, it's been a long time since I played the GameCube version.
Yeah, true enough. Alright, anyway, that's going to bring us to our final topic, which is there is a new Final Fantasy game on the way, and it is actually an arcade game, and most important of all, it is a fighting game. Which, if you guys know me, that I do love my fighting games. How are you feeling about this, Mr. Nia?
I'm looking forward to it. I do generally like the Final Fantasy series, at least the ones I played. And I do like the idea of bringing all these characters together to beat them up and, you know, choosing your favorite and winning the whole Final Fantasy tournament or whatever it is. So, it's a fun little idea that I like, so I'll be looking forward to an eventual PS4 Xbone release, which I'm sure they will.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that they will as well. Yeah, it's Dissidia? Is that how you... Dissidia? I can never pronounce it.
I just always pronounce it Dissidia.
Dissidia. Okay, that works. We'll call it Dissidia. So Dissidia is going to be a 3-on-3 kind of arena-style fighter from what I've seen. Apparently it's going to be very similar to a game called Gunslinger Stratos 2, which I've never heard of in my entire life.
Yeah, there were two PSP games, which were 1-on-1, but this is 3-on-3, so I don't know how they will manage that, at least in terms of multiplayer goes. But, I mean, it looks pretty interesting. With 3-on-3, I think they can expand the roster a whole lot more, which will be interesting. Because the PSP games were a slight bit limited. There was pretty much just 2 representatives per Final Fantasy, the hero and the villain.
Yeah, fair enough. Now, the game is being developed by Square Enix and also Taito, which I find very interesting because I haven't seen a game from them in a very long time. Are they still? I assume they're obviously still active in Japan.
Yeah, I think they've been mostly active in the arcade scene, which is why we haven't seen them at all.
Ah, yes, because there are no arcades here anymore.
No, not anymore.
Yeah, that's a conversation for another time because I never really got to have... I grew up in a very small town, like way north in Australia, like super far tropical north, and so like our arcade scene was just... There wasn't one. There was a couple of them. That was it. Anyway, that's a whole another story sort of thing. Did you have arcades when you were... Like, did you have that like arcade scene thing when you were growing up?
Yeah, I mostly lived in cities and suburbs, so I could always find an arcade when they were around, but ultimately they kind of died out pretty fast when I was a kid. So they kind of just all disappeared eventually, so I miss them.
Yeah, as do I. I had some very fond memories of arcades, because like, did you ever see that really shitty Denzel Washington movie with Russell Crowe in it? Oh god, I can't remember the name of it. It was the one where like Russell Crowe was like this VR program.
I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but I think I know which one you're talking about.
I expect you to be an expert on all Denzel Washington movies. Hey, you've disappointed me terribly.
Talk to me about anime, I can answer everything, but Denzel Washington movie, sorry.
Yeah, he played this VR character. Anyways, like it's a long stupid story, but the point is that there's so many quotable lines. It was a terrible movie, but it was one of those terrible movies with so many quotable lines. And my friend and I, we would just sit in like Daytona, even though like Daytona was like freaking like 10 years old by that point. We would just sit there screaming them at each other as we were driving around, and we got thrown out of the arcade for it. So, good times. So okay, so most important question, going back to Final Fantasy. What is the best Final Fantasy?
Well, if we're going by AGDQ standards, it's a what's the joke they always do? I can't remember, but my favorite Final Fantasy is Final Fantasy IX.
Okay, really interesting. That's actually interesting. Not many people say 9. Why would you say 9?
Because it's basically, it can be as easy or as difficult as you want it to be. It's very accessible. It's very straightforward. It has a good story. It has a good world, and it's basically not trying to be so ridiculously complicated that it hurts your head. Meanwhile, it's not, so handholdy that it basically says, here's where you need to go, here's what you need to do, here's what you'll equip. No, you can basically equip and do whatever you want with your characters. It just depends on what you want to do. But it's at least handholdy enough to where newbies won't get lost or overwhelmed.
It's for the cat people, isn't it? You're a furry. Just you can say it. It's okay.
No, I'm not a cat person.
You're a furry, though. Come on, say it.
No.
Okay, I didn't mind 9. Was 9 by the same team as 7?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, because I had this idea in my head at the time that they had kind of rotating teams. That the team worked on 7, worked on 9, and the team worked on 8, worked on 10.
No, 7 worked on. I believe they worked on 8. I also believe they were working on Parasite Eve at the time. So I believe 9 was done by a different team altogether.
Okay, fair enough. My favorite is 8, and that's really only because that was the first Final Fantasy that I played, which I think is the excuse that most people have.
Yeah, it's the old Zelda problem of which was your favorite, well, whichever one you played first.
Exactly. It's like, because like it's just like, it was just this whole like revelation to me. It's like, oh my god, you can play games that are not linear. They're an open world. You can go where you want to go. You can do what you want to do, and that like sense of awe and wonder just can't be repeated after that. I don't think.
Yeah, it really just kind of depends on what type of game you're into. Because I know certain Final Fantasy games are really, really good for certain people, whereas so they wouldn't be good for me. So it just kind of depends on what kind of game you're into, really.
Yeah, I didn't like 7 that much just because I've always been kind of graphics whore, and it was a big step backwards from 8 to 7 in terms of graphics, because 8 was probably one of the best looking games on the PS1. 9 I didn't mind. 9 was also a very good looking game, obviously. It probably actually did look better than 8 did. 10 wasn't bad, aside from like the whole part.
Yeah, like I said, it really just kind of depends on what story you're looking for, kind of what game you want to play. Because there are certain Final Fantasy games that are stupidly hard, and there are some that are stupidly easy, so yeah, pick your poison.
Yeah, true. Okay, so if 9 is the best, what's the worst?
Of the ones I played... The ones I played...
Choose your words carefully.
I don't like 10 very much. I hate all the characters in that game.
Okay. You hate all the characters, even Sir Auron?
Besides Auron, sorry.
Yeah, take that back.
Auron's the one redeeming factor of that entire game. Too bad he doesn't do him a whole lot.
It is, and oh, did you see? There's a Man-at-Arms where they actually made Auron's sword. And normally I'm not a big fan of Man-at-Arms just because, especially the newer ones, I feel like they kind of like have their own little this is just me being like really nerding up here and like really being like, how dare they change the sword? But like they do change the swords. They did Dante's Rebellion with like a wooden grip and things like that. But they made Sir Auron's katana but the guy doing it actually did it in like a very traditional manner. He actually like folded the steel, so it had like 50,000 folds in the blade, or something like, it's actually not like 50,000, but like 5,000, and shit like that, and I thought it was really cool.
Oh, that's certainly interesting. I do like watching Man-at-Arms from now and again.
Yeah, do you have? I mean, I again, like, this is showing my Final Fantasy bias. I do like really love the gunblade that they made.
Yeah, it's an interesting looking weapon. Very impractical, I think, but it's a very interesting looking weapon.
I mean, it's very interesting. I like it just because they actually did make it like perfect. It looked exactly like it would in the game. Like, there was no interpolations. It was like the exact same scale size. It was the right color. They even had like the barrel turning when you pulled the trigger out. So that really did it for me. I've seen they made Buster Sword. They made Sephiroth's Masamune. Those weren't too bad either.
Yeah, they kind of do a little bit of everything in terms of games, anime, movie stuff, etc.
Yeah, and well, for me, the worst Final Fantasy to me is probably Final Fantasy 12, and it's purely not. It's not for the story. It's not for the graphics. It's not for the music. It's not for the characters. It's the fact that the controls are ass backwards, literally.
Really, what's wrong with them?
Have you not played it?
No, I haven't played 12.
Okay, 12 is 12. Basically, the up is down and left is right. That's the problem.
Seriously?
That is seriously how you manipulate the camera. Unless I got a broken copy of the game when I bought it, like it's like it controls like as if you're actually moving the camera, not the character. So when you move the character left, the camera swings to the right to make it look like it's going left.
Ugh. Yeah, I would get so confused with that.
And it just, yeah, it just breaks the hell out of my brain, and it kills me because, like, from what I've seen, like the first few hours of the game that I've played, it does genuinely look like a lot of fun. But I can, every time I try to pick it up and go, this is the time, this is the, like, yeah, I'm going to do it. I played this game like fucking 10 years ago. I am going to finish it. I can't do it, and it, yeah.
Maybe someday.
Maybe someday. And on that note, I think it's about time that we wrap this up. Yeah, man, thank you very much. You've been a very good sport, and if people enjoyed this, where can they find you? Aside from, I mean, you've got your Brain Scratch channel, what else do you have? You've got a Twitter? You want to shout that out?
Yeah, I have a Twitter, just Nayrman BSC, NAYRMAN BSC on Twitter.
Yep, awesome. I'm a subscriber. I'm sure you guys should be too. I have my own Twitter. It's @KaneProvis, which is my actual name, for those of you who haven't figured it out already. So that's KANEPROV for Victor IS. And I generally just do updates for the channel. So if there aren't videos going up for any particular reason, if you're one of those 5 people who is really holding out for your daily update, I usually post a reason why. This week, it was because my computer decided to reset twice in the middle of the night, which is good of it.
Ah, well, it happens now and again, so just gotta keep an eye on it.
Indeed. And on that note, we'll catch you guys later. Thank you very much for joining us, and I'm sure we'll see you all very soon.